What's going on, guys? It's Coach Bronson here, and I want to talk about how to look at what you're doing and make changes based on your progress. So, we do things, we test, and you do benchmarks in workouts. You get on the scale, you do a body composition scan, and you see things are happening. I want to give you some guidelines, something to think about on where to look for some things that you can make improvements on. We're going to talk specifically nutrition today. But before we do that, I want to make sure that you subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, do so. If you are subscribed, click on the bell so that you know every time I put out a new video. But more importantly, please, please, please share this information with somebody that you know because it may help them answer some questions, figure out something that's keeping them stalled, or make progress along their journey to better quality of life. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to talk about um, how to evaluate things that you may need to do to tweak and improve your nutrition routine, your nutrition habits. Okay. First thing we're going to start with is we're going to talk about what are the basics. What are some of the things that I particularly recommend when it comes to following a nutrition plan? Okay. There's three basic things. Okay. Um, One is your macros matter. And your macros from the standpoint of grams, you guys know I don't do things by calories or percentages. Okay. I want your lean body mass in pounds to match your protein in grams, or your protein can be higher. Okay. So if you have 150 pounds of lean body mass, that's how much you weigh without body fat, then I want you to get 150 grams of protein every day. Okay. At a minimum, that's where I want you to start. Okay. If the 150 is your number, then I want you to get less than fat and carbs combined of 150. So if you do 25 grams as a minimum for carbs, then you should be getting 125 grams or less. You don't have to get this number. This is a minimum. Sorry, this is a maximum number, not a minimum number. Okay. 125 grams of fat. Okay. So with protein, the number I'm giving you is your minimum. You try to get to that, at least that every day. On the fuel side, the fuel calorie, that's functional calories. On the fuel calorie side, you're trying to stay under 150 for fat and carbs at the same time. So combine the two together. That's what you want to stay under. Okay. So that's our macro guideline. Second guideline for most of my, for when I work with people and help people come up with nutrition plans, whole foods. As much as possible, you want to do whole foods, natural foods, nothing processed. If it has an ingredients label, it does not belong in your body. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean it forever for the rest of your life. Usually, when I'm working with somebody, it's to get them to a certain point of maintenance or meet a certain goal when it comes to lean mass gain or just body composition in general. So, that is the number one thing I start with because many times processed foods of one form or another, and we'll talk about that as we go, is the reason why they're stalled or not making the progress they want to make. Okay. So, macros, meet the macros, that number, get that number for protein and fat and carbs. Number two, whole foods. Don't eat anything that has a label. Okay. Number three, avoid dairy if you need to. There's the key. Okay. Some people can have dairy, can have dairy, and it doesn't bother them. It doesn't cause them to stall. They don't have any issues. Okay. I'm not one of them. If I eat dairy, it messes me up. My fat loss kind of just stops and slows down a lot. Um, and my digestion gets a little messed up. Now, do I have dairy sometimes? Absolutely. I love cheese. I love cheese. Okay. But when I'm trying to work on something very specific and work towards a goal, particularly like right now, I'm working with Rob Sykes, Keto Savage. We're trying to see how low I can get in body fat. Cheese is going to mess me up. Okay. So that's another thing. You've got to be aware and paying attention to what is happening. If it's messing you up, then maybe it's something that needs to go for a little bit until you get where you want to be. Then you can try reintroducing it again, just like with anything else. Okay. You've got to be flexible. And that's where this whole process comes into play. If you were trying to reach a goal, then that means you need to add some things and take some things in and out of your lifestyle in order to find the combination that's going to help you reach your goal. Okay. If at any point in time you are saying to yourself, I don't want to give this up, you are by definition keeping yourself from success. If you are unwilling to remove something or unwilling to add something or change something or do something different on any level, then you are by definition keeping yourself from making the changes necessary in order to be successful. You cannot have success and do things the same way. It doesn't work that way. If you want to have something different, you have to do something different. Okay. So, what we're going to talk about may be hard because I know people get attached to products, they get attached to certain foods. They feel like they need those things in order to be happy. That's a different video for a different day. Okay. Emotional connection to food and all that kind of stuff. I get it. That's not what we're going to talk about. Okay. I do want to talk about your mindset towards change and evaluating and being honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself about where you are, what you're doing, and is it helping you move forward? Okay, that's what this is about. All right, so those are the guidelines: 1 to 1, 1 gram of protein to 1 pound of fat. Okay, 1 gram or less of fuel calories, fat and carbs to one pound of lean mass. I said, did I say fat earlier? 1 gram of protein to 1 gram of lean mass, 1 gram of protein or less to 1 gram to 1 pound of lean mass. I am all over the place. I need to finish my coffee. If what I said just confused you, send me a message and I'll explain it again. Okay, so 1 to 1. Whole foods. If it has an ingredients label, don't eat it. Dairy. It's fine until it's not. If it's causing you problems, if you feel like you're stalled and that's something that you can change it. Okay, that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, what does that look like? How does that work? Okay, well, there's basically two things. Okay, we talked about one. The reason I have these guidelines is because I try to bundle the two main components of nutrition. Okay, when we talk about things that you can do to tweak, the two main components are simple: macros and source of food. That's it. The only two big things that you can change have to do with macros and source of food. Okay, with macros, knowing what they are, making sure that they're the right macros, okay, and then following them. Are you following? Something to ask yourself when you're evaluating where your progress is at. The next time you get on a body scan, the next time you do a tape measure, the next time you weigh yourself, whatever it may be, okay, if you're not seeing that your pants are getting bigger the way that you want them to, whatever, okay, one of the things to evaluate is, are you actually sticking to your macros? Are they correct and are you following them? Okay, many times there's a couple things that happen where you're not actually following the macros even though you may think you are. Okay, you may be tracking religiously, you may be planning ahead, and there may be a couple things that happen that you don't realize, okay, that you're off. Okay, the most common one is not reading ingredients labels, okay, properly or completely, and realizing that they have things in them that are not beneficial. Okay, maltodextrin, all the 70, I think they're up to 90 different names now of sugar and carbohydrates. Okay, doing net carbs instead of total carbs. If you're doing net carbs, you are setting yourself up for failure. Do total carbs. There's no discussion there. If you want to be successful, do total carbs. Okay, understanding, like I said, all the different names for sugar. Eating a ton of processed food in general is going to change your caloric to nutrition density. Okay, processed foods have less nutrition than whole foods, period. Okay, you want nutrient dense foods, so go towards whole foods. Okay, um, another thing that happens when you're tracking, there's a lot of times the brand name in the app that you're tracking, if you're putting the brand name food entry, so if you're in Chronometer and you're eating, I don't know, Teton sausage, and you put Teton sausage, I'm just using it. Haven't looked. I don't know if it's correct or not, right? If you're putting some kind of product in there, the manufacturer, the product company's entry could be different than what the USDA actual nutritional information is. because the product company doesn't have to put the right stuff in there, just like they don't have to put the right stuff in their labels. Okay, we've all seen products that say 0 carbs, and then you look at the ingredients and it says maltodextrin or dextrose or some other sort of carbohydrate. Okay, so we know that the product companies lie in their products and on their packaging. What's to say that they're not doing the same thing in these apps when they put their entries in their apps? Okay, that doesn't mean everyone does, but it's a safe bet that if you are eating something that you can find or create a generic version of, that you're going to get more accurate information than if you use the product specific entry in your app. Okay, something to think about. All right. So when it comes to macros, even if you're trying to stay on track, it's possible that you're not. So evaluate all of those aspects of tracking your macros and staying on point. Okay. Outside of, I'm not even going to talk about, are you actually putting everything in that you say you're eating or not eating. Okay. I'm going to assume that you're putting every single thing in. Every single thing. Nothing doesn't go in your tracking if you are actually trying to track and make a change. Okay. That also means, another thought, love when things just pop into my head. If you're not sure, because I've seen this happen, I've I've had the option and the choice run through my head myself. Okay, as I'm putting food in. Okay. If you have an option where you're not sure which entry to put in, you get some kind of meat, you're not sure exactly the cut, if you put trimmed or cooked or lean or whatever, there's like 5 options for the same cut of meat, and you're not sure which one you should choose. Okay. Choose the one with the least protein and the most fat every single time. Do not give yourself a window to potentially get more fat in the day than you need or less protein than you could have. Okay? If you have to make a multiple choice answer to food that you're putting in Chronometer, put in the option that has the most fat and the least protein. Okay, because when that number hits your total for the day, you're going to need to get more protein to match your number, and you're going to avoid more fat to stay under your number. Okay, you're setting yourself up for long-term success if you do that every single time. That's a little pro tip. Okay, always pick lower protein, higher fat in your foods if you have an option. Okay, so that's one thing. Are you keeping with your macros and all the kind of stuff that goes there? Okay. The second thing, the source of your foods. Okay. I want to make this statement and I want you to understand something. When we talk about processed foods, by definition, processed foods are always going to be less nutritional benefit to you than whole foods every single time. More calorically dense, less nutrient dense. Okay. Period. That's what processed food, the process that these foods go through reduce nutrients. It's just what happens. It's how it works. Okay. If I have a steak and I turn that steak into a beef isolate protein powder, that powder cannot be as nutritionally beneficial as the steak. It just can't happen. Okay. So you have to understand that the benefit of processed foods is solely convenience. That is the benefit. It is more convenient to do processed versions of food than it is to do whole foods. We know that. That's obvious. That's fantastic. It's it's a tool that can be used if it is relied upon, and if it is something that is part of your daily routine, um, without you evaluating the benefit or the harm that it's doing, then you have to stop for a second, sit back, and look at the bigger picture. Okay. The benefit of processed foods is convenience. That means there's a trade off. You are making a decision to trade convenience for nutrition, to trade convenience for reaching a goal potentially. There is potential that being convenient, okay, working within your comfort zone because it's easier, is the very same thing that is keeping you from reaching that body composition or that health or that whatever else goal that you may have. because by definition, convenience sacrifices nutrition. Convenience sacrifices progress. Okay? What are you going to do? You got to look at that for yourself. Is there something that I'm doing? Is there a shake that I'm taking every day that is easier? But if I really look at what's happening when I do this, if I stop doing it for a week or two and I decide to replace it with some hard boiled eggs or some biltong or make some bacon, throw it in a bag and eat the bacon instead, pork rinds, or who knows what other options there are. Okay. Where I can get real protein instead of a shake and then see what happens. And I'll tell you, I'm gonna bet that if you do that, you're gonna see some changes that you weren't expecting. Okay, so something to think about. What are you willing to sacrifice, and is convenience more important to you than success? Okay, so that's when we talk about processed foods. That's one of the things you need to look at. Okay, again, remember I told you we're not going to talk about just macros. A lot of times people get on the scale and they think, oh my God, I got to change my macros. Something's off. Macros could be perfectly fine. Where you're getting your food matters. Where you're getting your food matters. What's the source? Okay, if it's processed, okay, remember higher caloric density, lower nutrient density. Most processed foods also means you're getting fiber. Okay, we know that fiber increases inflammation and causes gastric distress. It's not necessarily as good for your gut as everybody's been telling you it is. Okay, things that are fiber that you may not think are fiber: xanthan gum, acacia gum, guar gum, all the gums. Okay, anything that's used to thicken products or stabilize products, okay, soluble fibers cannot be processed, okay, cannot be utilized or digested by the human body. So when we ingest it, our stomach doesn't know what to do with it. What I'm putting sand, I'm putting like cellulose, plastic in my body. My body doesn't know what to do with it. It can't do anything with it. It causes inflammation, and my body has to figure out how to get rid of it. Okay. That's not beneficial. Okay. Inflammation takes energy and takes resources away from other processes that you want your body to be focused on. So when you add inflammation internally to your system, you are taking away from things that could be improving your system. Okay. So keep that in mind. Gums, xanthan, acacia, guar, all those gums, stay away from them. Okay. Not beneficial. Okay. When we talk about dairy as a source of food, okay, it's a good source of fat, it's a good source of protein. Okay. But dairy in and of itself can cause problems with people. A lot of people have issues, and dairy causes inflammation and causes distress in a lot of people. Okay. We're not going to get into all the specifics about the issues with dairy and why people have issues with dairy. There are a couple things to know: that there are different forms. Okay. Casein, if you're doing protein powders, if you're going to do dairy, I would highly recommend doing whey versus casein or milk proteins. Okay. Casein and milk proteins take longer to digest. And they're just not as bioavailable. Whey protein has a higher uptake, you get a better response from it, and it's been shown to have a greater increase on lean mass gain. Okay, and it doesn't sit in your stomach for as long. Okay, your body can process it faster. If you're going to do something that is processed food, whey protein is a better way to go. Now, for both of them, they're still milk. They're still milk based. They're milk proteins. Okay, and just in the dairy world, just having dairy in your system, some people they don't. Again, they bother. Other people they don't. But until you cut it out, you may not know it's stalling you, and that's the thing with dairy. Okay, I'll just use myself as an example. I've been dairy free for 7 months, 8 months. It's been a while. I haven't had any dairy. Okay. Minus butter. I do butter. I do butter all the time. Something about butter versus cheese. And I say dairy, but I'm really talking about cheese, guys. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I'm talking about cheese. I don't do milk. I don't do heavy cream. So when I say dairy, I'm really talking about cheese. Okay. Heavy cream to a point for some people, but cheese is the biggest one because it's so easy to eat and it goes good. And there's so many varieties and it's just awesome. Okay. But I've been cheese free for 7, 8 months. This last week, okay, I had 2 days where I had 2 servings of cheese. Okay, I had 2 ounces of cheese for one meal one day. I had 2 ounces of cheese for one meal another day. Okay, that week, oh sorry, I had three. I had a shake that was made with casein as well that week. So I had 3 days of 3 milk products, 3 dairy products. Okay, that week I was up a pound and a half of fat. Okay, coincidence? Maybe. Okay. But I've been dairy free for 7 or 8 months. I changed that for 3 days in one week and I added fat. Okay. Something to think about. If you are having an issue with fat loss, if you feel like you're stuck and it's not going anywhere, and you're drinking shakes that are made with casein or milk proteins, drinking shakes that have xanthan gum, guar gum, acacia gum, and drinking uh, and eating cheese, okay, particularly cheese, okay, if you're doing these things, then it's possible, possible that stopping them for a week or two and then reevaluating where you are could show you some significant differences and improvements that you might not have been expecting. Okay. So, something to think about, guys. That's what I got to talk about today. Okay. Your honesty and your evaluation of where you are, where you're going, and the things that you're doing to get you there are something that you have to work through yourself. Okay. I just want to give you some guidelines and some things to think about that may not be at the top of your list to consider. Okay. Macros matter. The source of your foods matter. And there's a lot of different levels in all of that that you have to evaluate. What is better for you, convenience or progress, right? Um, uh, a connection, an emotional connection to a food or progress, a desire to not change things or progress. There's a bunch of different things that you have to decide. None of it's right, none of it's wrong. Okay. Your goals and what works best for you is all that matters. I just want you to know what you're evaluating so you can make the best decision for you. Okay. That's what matters. I want you to be happy. I want you to have a good quality of life. And these are some things you can look at to help you get there. All right. That's all my videos for today. Hope to see you guys soon. Don't forget, subscribe, share this video, and I'll see you guys again. Take it easy.